Greetings wherever you are, and I hope you're well and not weighed down with life's too many numerous burdens and bad news that comes out of the world. As it Psalm 112 says that the one who fears the Lord will not be fearful or frightened of bad news. There's plenty of that. But look, yesterday, it's November the 3rd today, but yesterday we talked about defining the gospel, and that gives us an uplift that we're given the gift of Christ's righteousness. But what we want to look at today is whether this grace that we are given is just like a safety net, something that we're trying to do the right thing all the time, but we fall, and that's when grace comes to the rescue, like a patch, a safety net. Well, we'll base our short discussion. These are becoming longer and longer, these discussions, on Romans 6 verse 11. So you too must consider yourselves as having ended your relation to sin, but living in unbroken relation to God. That's powerful. That's Romans 6:11 from the Williams New Testament. The comment reads here from the Space for Grace: God takes a far more serious view of sin than the man on the street, or even most Christians who shrug their shoulders and says, well, no one's perfect. Sin is more than just doing some wrong, breaking some code of a religious organisation or policy. It is an inborn filthy state of heart, a condition of our innermost being, rebellion against the sovereign Lord God, our Creator. Hence, the Bible never speaks of God's grace or undeserved kindness, if you were a former Jehovah's Witness, God's grace as a patch to simply cover over our deficiencies or forgotten sins. So grace is more than just a safety net for people, good people, just in case they fall from time to time. As if salvation consisted of good works, but then grace comes in at the rescue at the end. It doesn't go like that. We're going to use the alliteration, triple alliteration, the debt, the dress, and the dwelling. So let's see sin from these three aspects, how God looks at our sinful state and the remedy. So the debt. Now in Luke 18 verses 9 to 14, we won't read it right now, but it's the case of the tax collector, and he was beating his breast in anguish. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And he declared spiritual bankruptcy. More about that tomorrow. Likewise, we need his grace to provide a remedy for our guilt. Not just to cover over a debt, but cancel a debt we cannot pay, plus make us rich in him. Remember, we said the gospel is not just forgiving sins and feeling not guilty. It's having Christ's righteousness imputed to us, given to us as a grace gift. The dress. That's interesting. If we were to read in our own time Zechariah chapter 3 verse 1 to 4, it describes the high priest in filthy garments representing the pollution of him and the nation. For a finer point, when it says filthy, the Hebrew word so, the adjective so, it's related to the noun, the Hebrew noun for excrement. Or if you're using perhaps some translations, dung. It was no mere trivia. This was the high priest, after all. But what happened in that account in Zechariah 3, he didn't just tidy himself up a bit and scrub his clothes clean. No, it was not a matter of a quick spin, a quick wash. God provided him and us with new robes of righteousness. That's where the dress comes in. I've got to use Isaiah 61 from the New Living Translation. Let me just read verse 10 and 11. I am overwhelmed with joy in the Lord my God, for he has dressed me with the clothing of salvation and draped me in a robe of righteousness. I'm like a bridegroom dressed for his wedding, or a bride with her jewels. Not wonderful? So here was the idea of receiving from God a robe of righteousness given as a gift, almost like a wedding gown. And it reminded me, and maybe it reminds you, of the prodigal son, the parable, or maybe that should be prodigal father, but that's another story. The prodigal son who returns, and the father brings out like 4 gifts, and he says, "Son, welcome home," and hugs his smelly, estranged son, and repeatedly kisses him. And again, that's another story to elaborate on another time, but he says to his servant, the father says, "Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him." Remember? Some conjecture,